The world of wrestling outside of the WWE features major companies like Ring of Honor, All Elite Wrestling, Total Nonstop Action, all the way down to tiny independents that feature 20 fans sitting in a high school gymnasium. With that lack of corporate overlook comes some very unique creative choices. And sometimes the talents behind those shocking decisions make their way all the way up to WWE. I'm Senior Siete here for 7 Wrestling, and let's take a look at 7 WWE superstars with controversial pasts. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and Pele kick the notification bell. Also, before we get into this, know that we're not looking to get anybody in trouble. Wrestling is a veritable charcuterie board of audiences, tastes, and styles. What isn't for you might be for someone else, and honestly, the guys who run WWE and NXT Creative have some, let's just say raunchy moments in their past as well. And while we're at it, let's put a quick little disclaimer here that some of this is going to be distasteful. Number 1. XII Dolan. Before she was a member of Mandy Rose's Toxic Attraction trio, XII Dolan, who was then known as Priscilla Kelly, worked for several independent organizations such as Shine and DDT Pro Wrestling. But she would first make a name for herself in the suburban fight promotion in Los Angeles in a bout against Tuna. Yep, that's that wrestler's name, Tuna. During that match that took place in a bar setting, Dolan would batter Tuna until she was slumped down in a chair. Dolan would then take this opportunity to reach into her tights and retrieve... Oh, we're starting this off with a wild one. Dolan would reach into her tights and retrieve a used feminine hygiene product. Yeah, wrestling. She would then state, "Do you want to taste the tuna?" Oh, come on, this is awful. And for the record, it's not too late for you to go watch some other video. Save yourself! Dolan would then proceed to place the item in Tuna's mouth. Ugh, and we thought the mandible claw was kind of gross. The clip would eventually go viral with such stars as Jim Ross speaking out against it negatively. But Dolan would respond that the item in question wasn't real, and the show did take place in a bar, so the audience was over the age of 21. Which is kind of the point of what we're saying here. All wrestling isn't for all audiences the same way that all animation isn't for all audiences. That being said, we'd be cool if that gimmick didn't make its way into her usual repertoire. Number 2. The Good Brothers. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are quite an interesting duo. In Japan, they're a wildly successful, brutal team who held the IWGP World Tag Team titles on 3 separate occasions. And at WWE, they're kind of like AJ Styles' wacky buddies. They've tried everything to get a foothold with the audience, but nothing seems to work. The highlight of their time at WWE was when they played roles in the main event of Night 1 of WrestleMania 36, when they helped AJ Styles in his battle against The Undertaker. And because this was during COVID, the decision was made to do a cinematic bout that was dubbed the Boneyard Match. And what was a Boneyard Match? Well, nobody really knew. But as we watch AJ and The Undertaker battle it out in some kind of farm, it didn't matter. It was awesome. And Gallows and Anderson would get their time to shine as well, before being tossed off of a barn and tombstoned onto a barn roof, respectively. Unfortunately, Gallows and Anderson would not survive the following round of roster cuts. So, they tapped into their entrepreneurial spirit and crafted their own wrestling pay-per-view known as Talkin' Shop-A-Mania. Held in a ring in Gallows' backyard, the August 1st, 2020 event was a veritable who's who of non-WWE talent at the time. Gallows would refer to this as the worst wrestling pay-per-view ever, which just leads me to believe that he'd never seen the Legends of Wrestling. In the main event, Gallows and Anderson would square off as their alter egos Sex Ferguson and Chad Too Bad in a parody of the WrestleMania outing, but instead of a Boneyard match, this was a Boner Yard match. Zing! Rubber chickens, pills, flatulence, a dream sequence, not particularly subtle sexual innuendo. This match had it all, and it probably had Jim Cornette somewhere freaking out. At any rate, it clearly didn't get them into too much trouble, as they're back in the WWE now, doing, well, it isn't really clear what they're doing right now. Number 3. Asuka. Before she became the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka, or as she was known then, Kana, was the badass rebel of Joshi Wrestling. After finding success in DDT Pro Wrestling and Stardom, Asuka branched out on her own and started promoting her own shows. And it was one show in particular that could raise a few eyebrows, that being the intergender match between Asuka and Naomichi Marufuji taking on Meiki Satomura and Minoru Suzuki and it took place on June 16, 2014. And if those names sound unfamiliar to you, you may know Satomura from her time in NXT where she won the NXT UK Women's title, and you may know Suzuki by his popular nickname, Murder Grandpa. Yikes. And things seemed to get wildly out of hand during the match, which, if you're only a fan of American wrestling, may be very surprising because intergender wrestling is rarely used in the United States, and when it is, it's often used for laughs. But not this bout. At one point, Suzuki seemingly stopped cooperating with Asuka's offense, including a leg takedown and a backslide. The two would come to blows with Suzuki absolutely brutalizing her with unprotected headbutts and slaps to the face. In fact, the beating she receives is so intense that Suzuki's own tag team partner tried to pull him off of her. However, it was later revealed that this bout had been booked by Asuka herself in an attempt to get her over as being more of a badass, which, mission accomplished, I guess. Number 4. Scarlet. You probably know Scarlet today as 1/5 of Karrion Kross's faction, The Final Prayer, which is unique in that there are 3 wrestlers and 2 managers. But before she was Karrion's creepy yet sexy manager, she was mainly just sexy on the independent scene. Known as the Smoke Show Scarlet Bordeaux, she was a throwback to an era that focused more on good looks over in-ring talent. Not to say that Scarlet couldn't wrestle, it just seemed like less of her focus. And when she was released from WWE in 2021, she decided to go back to her sexy roots. It was on June 16, 2022 at Circle 6's Hope for the Hopeless event, where Scarlet would square off against Eddie Only in an intergender bra and panties match. And remember what we just talked about where Asuka faced off against Minoru Suzuki? Well, this was the exact opposite. What made news about this particular bout was when Scarlet would proceed to beat Only with a phallic intercourse implement. What are we doing here? And when it was all said and done, she stripped her opponent down to a skimpy thong. Again, this all falls in line with our rules about the appropriate wrestling in front of the appropriate wrestling audience, but, yikes. Number 5. Seth Rollins. Look at this fella. Giant sunglasses, big ol' hats, wearing wacky costumes. Before he got his start as the architect, the visionary, the revolutionary Seth friggin' Rollins, he was a Ring of Honor performer known as Tyler Black, and he would gain fame and notoriety for a ring outfit, but for very different reasons. It was during Ring of Honor's 161st show on September 15th, 2007 that Rollins would make his ROH debut, joining a faction along with Necro Butcher and Jimmy Jacobs that would be known as the Age of the Fall. During the debut, the newly formed group would attack the Briscoe brothers that had just won a ladder match against Kevin Steen and El Generico, better known as this guy and this guy. The Age of the Fall would hang a bloody Jay Briscoe from the ceiling by his feet using the apparatus that had been used to raise the World Tag Team titles. And as he hung there, blood would drip from his head down onto Jacobs, who had worn a white suit. And that suit did not stay white for very long. It was quite a horrific, stomach-turning visual. It was way too graphic to include in the pay-per-view, so the full impact of Seth Rollins' ROH debut was lost. But when your event heads up a Reddit thread entitled, "What's the sickest shit you've ever seen in wrestling?" maybe that's a good thing. Number 6. Chelsea Green. Despite having a gimmick which is basically Karen turned up to 11, Chelsea Green seems like a lot of fun. I mean, seriously, one look at her previous gimmick of Laurel Van Ness and it's clear that she knows what it takes to stand out. And if you're looking for a little bit of background on why she came to the ring, holding a wine bottle, her makeup all askew, and wearing bits of a wedding dress, it's because her character had been left at the altar on 2 separate occasions. In fact, she'd have so much fun with this role that sometimes she'd wrestle as Chelsea Green, and the Laurel Van Ness personality would come out similar to Jushin Thunder Liger and his alternate character, Keishan Liger. And while the wine bottle might be a little controversial, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're talking about what happened after Chelsea was released from her WWE contract back in 2021. It was during a September 3rd, 2022 match between Green's husband Matt Cardona and Jimmy Lloyd that Green would hop onto the apron and expose herself to Lloyd and the probably very appreciative crowd. The shocked Lloyd would release his hold on Cardona, after which Cardona would hit a low blow and pin his titillated competition. It was later revealed that Green was wearing some kind of stickers over her sensitive areas, so there technically wasn't any indecent exposure. And honestly, all of this mirrored a moment from the Attitude Era where Marlena did something similar to distract the Sultan during the debut episode of Shotgun Saturday Night, but yeah, definitely not PG. Number 7. Joe Gase. Now, whether you call it hardcore wrestling or garbage wrestling or deathmatch wrestling, the truth is that the majority of the WWE roster has performed some kind of prop-assisted performance over the years. In fact, even in today's PG era, it's not uncommon to see chairs, ladders, stairs, and various other plunder make their way into the ring. And over the years, even more violent implements such as barbed wire and thumbtacks have been included in bouts, although we tend to see less and less of that these days. Outside of the WWE, several organizations will dabble in these throwbacks to a more extreme time, but no company hangs their hat on their anything goes vibe quite like Combat Zone Wrestling, better known as CZW. And one of the stars of CZW Hardcore Wrestling is none other than NXT standout, Joe Gase. Some examples of the creative items he used in the ring are glass Christmas ornaments, a microwave, a watermelon, some kind of rotary cultivator tool, flat screen TV. This guy's truly an innovator. And Gase, to his credit, embraces this side of his path and seems to take some good-natured ribbing about it in NXT. But with what I've seen this guy do with a bed of nails, I wouldn't want to get on his bad side. Well, there's our list. Do any other WWE superstars have controversial in-ring past? If so, let us know in the comments section below. Also, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and super kick the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Senior Siete for 7 Rasslin saying bye-bye.